Hello and welcome to another episode of Sonya Maya's Psychology, a place where I talk about sex, psychology, and relationships. If you like that, hit that like, hit that subscribe, or rate 5 stars if you're in a place that you can do that. So today I want to talk about 3 myths about foreskin. I've made a video about this before. I'll put it up here somewhere and down in the description. But I find that circumcision seems to be a very controversial topic. You know, people that are uncut are like, that's the way to go. And people that are cut are like, that's the way to go. So I'm going to talk about some research-based facts about circumcision, foreskin, etc. Let's get straight into it. So yeah, the value of foreskin has been on debate for years. And if you don't know what foreskin is, it's a layer of skin that covers the tip of the penis and or the glans, if you will, the head of the penis. When I first learned about the foreskin, I watched South Park from a young age, and they had this really silly episode where they were talking about the purpose of circumcision. It's not circumcision, it's circumcision. But I think Cartman or one of them or somebody was like, oh, it's a snip to make your peen look bigger, to make your fireman look bigger. That's not true, but I just thought that was funny.
We're just gonna snip it so that it looks bigger.
Yeah, I want to get a circumcision too.
But in general, when you snip and then grow up, whatever, it doesn't actually change the size. It just takes off a layer of skin. So I don't know what Trey Parker and Matt Stone's logic was with that one, but there's a lot of things that they have a smoking towel. So the first myth is that it's unhealthy to have one. It is not unhealthy to have a foreskin as long as you clean it properly, okay? Clean it in the shower with some water and some mild soap, okay? There's skin, yes, so things can get stuck under there. There is this substance called smegma, which is this smelly, cheesy substance if you don't clean it properly. And yes, if you have smegma under your foreskin, you are going to be more susceptible to infection and potential STIs. Because the skin under the foreskin is moist, yes, more bacteria can go there. So you want to gently pull back your foreskin, retract it, if you will, when you are cleaning it to get it more effectively. And if you have a child, you have to wait for the foreskin to separate from the peen to do this for your baby. You want to teach your child how to clean it properly, because I would imagine that a lot of people who don't know how to take care of their hygiene and in general and down there, whether you're a woman, man, or etc., it's because their parents haven't taught them how to do that, or maybe their parents didn't, generational issues. So yeah, if you don't do it, more risk of UTI, STI, inflammation, penile disorders, and penile cancer. So you want to avoid that. But in general, it's healthy to have a foreskin. It's totally fine. Without the foreskin, the peen might get more dry, chafed, and you also might have more irritation without a foreskin. So make sure to wear looser clothing and don't wear tight jeans, that type of thing. Avoid that. So yes, there has been research that shows there's some risk for uncut men, but all the research indicating that is not relevant after seeing that people who clean the under the skin, they're not at risk anyway. Number 2, I've seen a lot of contradicting research on this about whether you lose sensation, okay? And what I say after looking at all this research is that it's not conclusive that having a foreskin or not leads to more pleasure and more nerve endings. I strongly believe that it's individual and it's subjective, because pleasure is subjective and individual nerve endings cannot be counted. We can only really guesstimate, right? So yeah, some people say that it increases pleasure, and some people say that it doesn't. So I've seen some research saying that the foreskin has more nerve endings. So of course, if you remove it, then you're removing some pleasure. And then other research says that you're able to improve sexual satisfaction without the foreskin. In a 2011 study, 64% of cut men said that their peen was more sensitive, but some men finished faster due to having more nerve endings. So you see the contradiction here. And then another 2013 study found that 62.7% of men with premature ejaculation saw improvement after getting circumcised. So it's like, does it make it more sensitive, less sensitive? So much contradiction. So yeah, it's subjective. You could even argue that it's kind of similar to the argument that like a woman with a bigger clitoris, which happens because they're all different shapes and sizes, automatically would have better pleasure than a woman with a smaller one, which we just don't know if that's true. Number 3, it's a myth that having a foreskin creates a worse sexual experience. Of course, if you're not used to a man having uncut, let's say you're from America and then you go to Europe, you might be like, oh, that's a little bit interesting when it's flaccid, right? Because there's a little bit more skin on it. But in general, most of the time, not all the time, if someone has a foreskin, then there's going to be not that much of a difference when they're erect, because when the man is erect, the foreskin retracts. So in terms of sexual satisfaction and whatnot, in terms of appearance, it doesn't really matter. But in terms of the sexual experience, I have seen some research and some arguments that having a foreskin can be better for pleasure. For example, the lubrication that it provides, because there is that moistness, which sounds kind of weird to say, the slipperiness under the foreskin might actually increase more lubrication, therefore more pleasure. But not to say that people who are cut don't have lubrication or can't just like add some lube, but I find that interesting. Also, the way that the foreskin is, sometimes that can reduce friction, so some people might actually enjoy that, the extra skin there. And I've also seen a lot of people say, especially European people say that the foreskin actually causes a ribbing, because like when you're penetrating, if you think about what happens to the skin inside the vagina, it causes a rib sensation. A lot of toys try to replicate this, or even condoms. So without the foreskin, you're less likely to get that rib sensation, if that makes sense. So I hope this was helpful. There's a lot of myths about it. I don't think it's like one is better than the other, kind of like pubes or no pubes. I mean, I personally don't like hair on my food, but in terms of skin, I'm not even gonna like overshare with that. It really doesn't matter to me, kind of like how size doesn't matter for a lot of people. But I hope that clarified some things in terms of foreskin. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, let me know your thoughts below, because I know it can get a bit heated, but let's be respectful at the same time, because this is for edutainment, and also destigmatizing these topics that shouldn't be stigmatized, because they're bodies. They're our bodies. They're the reason we're here. Sex is the reason we're here. So hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn on bell notifications, and I'll see you next week for another video.